We have seen the neural network algorithm and the calculation of weights. Now we don't really need to calculate the weights manually like that. Uh, if we take any tool like R or Python or any algorithm that is pre-written, we just need to input the right values of X and the data set. So in fact, gradient descent method is not that easy to understand for non-mathematics students. So it's not that easy to implement or hardcore, write the program from the scratch. So in fact, most of the neural network tools, they don't expect the user to write the code full length for backpropagation. At least for us, uh, the starting and intermediate student, we don't really need to know the overall coding algorithm of finding out weights of neural network. So we can use tool like R. So we will try to use R to build the neural network, and we just need to be slightly careful while setting out the parameters in this neural network function. Everything else will be taken care of. So we'll try to build one neural network model for XOR data that we have been discussing, how automatically we can find out the weights, and then we will also do a neural network weights finding exercise on employee productivity data. We'll also use this neural network to predict the values. So we'll also find out what is the final model that looks like. Earlier we have built two logistic regressions, etc., etc. Now we will directly try to build one neural network equation. So I'll just clean the stuff here. Yeah. So here is the XOR data set, and we'll try to build the neural network. So neural net is the function, and then we need to mention the number of hidden layers, whether it is linear output or not. Yeah, it is not linear output, then we have to give a threshold. So we will go through these options in detail, what are these parameters and what is each parameter intended to do. So we will fit a XOR neural network model, and we have to make sure that library neural net is attached. Sometimes it takes time depending on the seed value that we supply, or depending on the initial random weights that are chosen. If it is taking too much time, we can stop and rebuild the model once again. So this time it has exited very quickly. Then we can plot the neural network. Error is 0. These are the weights. We can see the overall model. This is the model. These are the weights. We can So these are the final weights for XOR model. We can draw the decision boundaries as well for XOR model. If you remember, the XOR model looks like zeros and ones. So let us see the decision boundaries for XOR model. So these are the decision boundaries. Obviously, neural network has built a nonlinear decision boundary or two decision boundaries that will help us identifying ones and zeros. Obviously, anything between these lines is 0, beyond these lines is 1. That is how neural network is going to decide or classify ones and zeros. Similarly, we will try to build a neural network model on employee productivity data. So if we don't include linear dot output, then the model will go wrong. So we have to include the option linear dot output equal to false. It is not a linear output, it is a binary output 1 0. So this is the final model with an error 13, and there are 40,000 steps that have been taken for the number of hidden layers. We didn't mention any hidden layers earlier, so let's try to mention number of hidden layers. So when you mention number of hidden layers, we have mentioned 2 hidden layers, so these are the ones, and then error is 13, 8600 steps. So we'll try to do some kind of in-time validation and find out what is the error. We have the predicted value, so actual square root of error is 0.47, mean square error. Or we can do the plotting of actual versus predicted. So looks like that is not a very good model, so we can build one more neural network model on the employee productivity data. This time error is 11. We'll try one more time. This time error is 13. So similarly, we can try out the number of times and find out the best model by doing the validation. So that is the code. The code has some input parameters that we need to take care of. That is number of hidden layers in the network. So it is actually the number of nodes that we can input as a vector and add more hidden layers. Make sure that we have in sufficient number of hidden layers to capture the overall variance in the objective space. Step max mentions there is one option for step max. So while executing the algorithm, sometimes the neural network might run into a kind of a big loop where there are so many iterations taking place and it is never converging. So we can actually give step max as, let's say, 100,000 or 1 million, or like 500,000 or something, depending on computation power, and then we stop it at the end of it, otherwise it might take a lot of time. So sometimes algorithm might not converge due to default step max. So to increase the step max, like what happens by default, there are steps that are executed. Within that, if the algorithm doesn't converge, then we might get this error or warning. Then we can increase the number of steps. Threshold is the one that is related to error. So generally in neural network, error stopping criteria is based on the minimum error that is calculated. So if the error is lesser than the minimum error threshold, then the algorithm will stop. So we can fix the error threshold error depending on our requirement. So generally it is taken as 0.001. In neural network, in neural net function of R, the output is by default expected as linear. Most of the times our output is not linear, so that's why we need to give an option called linear dot output equal to false for classification problems. So this is how we build the neural network within R. So depending on the error, so you make sure the error is very close to 0. If the error is higher than 0, then we might have to rerun the algorithm again. Then we can validate, do a kind of in-time validation. How many zeros are there are actually classified as zeros, how many ones are there are actually classified as ones. Then we can predict using a compute function. So we can use the neural network model and we can give the values of x values, then find the value of y using compute function. In fact, there can be many solutions for a given neural network. Because of the gradient descent, algorithm is searching for the local minima, not the global minima. There is a whole lot of theory behind that, but at this point we just need to consider that the neural network output that we get is not unique. It might have multiple solutions. So this is one solution. If you see the set of weights here, 11, 8, 7, 19, 7, there can be several combinations. So you see the weights here. Here the error is 0. There are 191 steps. Again the error is 0, but the set of weights are different. Since there are so many values that are getting into this overall network, so even if we adjust some values and then the remaining values will be adjusted automatically, the overall error will be still minimum, but with different weights. Earlier the weights were this, now the weights are this, and the error is 0 again. Earlier these two are the lines, decision boundaries, now these two are the decision boundaries. Still there is 100% accuracy. This is set 3 with slightly different weights. So there can be many weights because all that we are trying to do is find the best, find the weights or the solution or the optimal solution that will give us the least error. So we might end up with different set of weights. So there is this issue with global versus local minimum, or this is a point that we need to definitely note down while we are working with neural network. So what exactly is this multiple solutions? What is this local versus global minimum? We will see in the next session. But as of now, this is how we build the neural networks using a function in R called neural net. So there can be multiple solutions for a given neural network because there are so many weights, and many weight combinations can lead into a smaller error. So the gradient descent method that we use in finding the weights in neural network is not finding the final global minima, it is finding the nearest local minima, and most of the times the local minimum works. So what is global minimum? In this particular graph, this is a global minimum and these are the local minimums, and in this particular example you can see this is the local minimum and this is the global minimum. So algorithms here are trying to find the local minima rather than global minima. That's the reason why you might see multiple solutions for a given neural network problem. Yes, that is a kind of uncomfortable situation, but yes, we can perform some cross-validation checks to find out the real final optimized solution. So as of now, we need to understand that there can be multiple solutions for a given neural network problem. Now we'll try to understand what are exact hidden layers and what is their role in this whole neural network. So this is a multi-layer neural network, whereas the layer 1 has 2 nodes, layer 2 has 3 nodes. So we can have multiple layers as well, because if the complexity in the objective space is really high and it is like seriously non-linear, then we can use these multi-layer neural network to capture the overall variation or capture the overall classification details in the object space. So here is the role of hidden layer. The first layer of the hidden layer kind of clearly creates decision boundaries. So the first layer creates these two decision boundary. So you can simply think them as perceptrons or simple logistic regression line outputs. Okay, so they are just simply straight lines or multiple lines on the decision space. That is the first hidden layer unit is going to do. And the second hidden layer, that forms these blue lines that combine these simple decision boundaries that were formed earlier. Now the second layer kind of forms shapes here, like earlier they were just lines and boundaries. Now we can see the shapes that are forming up in due to second hidden layer. In fact, third hidden layer is slightly more, it's going to form complex shapes and boundaries generated, and within the boundaries generated by the second layer we can see some more complex boundaries from the third hidden layer. And in fact, as we increase the number of hidden layer, we can see more and more multiple decision boundaries getting generated that will help us in classifying everything within that boundary is of type of one class, and outside that is of different class. So that is what these hidden layer is going, number of hidden layers are going to do. But how do you know like how many number of hidden layers or how many nodes that we should choose? Unfortunately, there is no concrete rule as such what is the right number of hidden layers that we should choose, but it's mostly trial and error. But one thing is sure, that if you have very few number of hidden layers, then we might not be able to explain, they are not sufficient, they might not be sufficient to explain the overall variation in the system. And if you have too many hidden layers, then it might lead to overfitting. So you can think of hidden layer or hidden node as a new variable in a usual scenario, modeling scenario. So if you have too many variables, then it might lead to overfitting. If you have less number of features or variable, then it might lead to bias. So definitely we need to understand the overall data set and the training data size and the complexity of the target. Based on that, we have to come up with the right number of hidden layer. Or we can obviously try bias, variance, trade-off and cross-validation, testing error, etc. to determine the optimum number of hidden layers. So that is it with the neural network algorithm and number of hidden layers and fitting neural network. In the next video, we will see a practical example, a digit recognizer. We will take a real data set and see how neural network can be applied to identify the digits. Let us try to understand the real world application of neural networks. So we will see a program called digit recognizer. So these are the handwritten digits, single digits. This is also known as minced data, modified National Institute of Standards and Technology data set. So there are some 60,000 examples. What we need to do is, the handwritten digits have been taken and then they have been modified to fit into a 20 by 28 by 28 pixels. So we need to build a neural network algorithm that will automatically identify what digit it is, so that next time if we just input the image, automatically the algorithm should identify what digit is written in that particular picture. So this is improvised version or a very complicated version of the same problem is image processing, computer vision or image recognition, where it has so many applications later on. So this is the basic version of image recognition. How do we find out what is there in a given image? So we'll try to build a neural network model to solve this problem of our handwritten digit recognition. So we'll take these test and training data set. We'll take them into R, So this is the training data set, and this is the test data set. So how many training examples are there? So there are 7291 the values. Those are 7291 rows, 257 columns. So it's a 16 by 16 data set. So each column name is nothing but a pixel, and we can see the column names. Those are just nothing but 257. So 256 pixels, and 257th one is the label. So let us see few of the images. So let's print first 10 images. So this is labeled as 1, this is 0, this is 1 again, this label is 3, this label is 6, this label is 3. So this image need to be rotated, but we can clearly understand that what image is that. So this is training data, that's why we know what label it is and what is the image. So now what we'll do is we will try to fit a neural network model that will automatically identify what digit is there in a given image. So we did some transformations and a bit of new variable creation. So that is just to feed the data inside the neural network model. So we're creating the model formula. Since there are many variables, so we want to create the model formula, and then we want to keep track of how much time it's going to take. So we are giving to start with, we are giving 15 hidden layers, and then we are also keeping track of time, and we are using package called neural net. So the function is neural net. So we're trying to fit a neural network for this particular example. So this is training data. Once we fit the model on training data, we will try to predict on test data and see the accuracy and confusion matrix, etc. once we fit the model.
Here are some of the real world applications of neural network, like the way we have seen the digit recognizer, which is a very basic form of image recognition. So similarly, there are some applications like self-driving car by taking the video as input, speech recognition, face recognition, face detection in a particular image, cancer cell analysis, finding out or analyzing the cancer cells, heart attack predictions, currency predictions, stock price predictions, credit card loan default predictions, taking the old credit history as input, marketing and advertising predictions by and predicting the response probability, weather forecasting, rainfall predictions. There are so many applications of neural network. It's not the just basic form of neural network that is taken. There are various advanced versions of neural networks that will be used in these real world applications. You can face recognition and autonomous car software. You can have a look at these links, YouTube links that contain some of the real world applications of neural networks. What are some of the drawbacks of neural network? You might have already observed it takes a lot of time to execute a neural network. So neural network is very computation intensive, calculation intensive algorithm. It takes a lot of time when the input is large, and there is no real theory that explains the number of hidden layers. What is the right number of hidden layers? Sometimes it gets very difficult to interpret the results, and it's very hard to uh, imagine what is happening in the hidden layers. It's very hard to find any real world analogy to find out what is happening in the hidden layers. And most of the times local minimum is also an issue. Gradient descent algorithm, as we know, it is not optimizing for the global minimum. It's finding out the local minimum. So even the output that we get does not guarantee perfect minima. We might have to cross validate before going in choosing that particular solution. Why there is this name neural network? Till now we have understood what is neural network. We have seen few applications. Why exactly the name neural network came? So the neural network algorithm of solving complex problems is actually inspired by our human brain. And in fact our brains are huge networks of billions of neurons. There are so many neurons. So in our brains, neurons receive the input and then they pass on the output to other neurons. So the artificial neural network algorithm is also built on same or similar logic. So if you see a particular neuron, it has dendrite and then it processes and then it sends it to axon, the output. So in neural network also, dendrites are similar to inputs, cell body is the processor. That is what happens in our middle portion of the neuron, and then axon, the output. So that is the reason why the name came from neural networks algorithms. So as a conclusion, what can we say? Neural network, whatever we have seen in this session, is just a small portion. It's just an introduction, intuitive introduction to the vast subject. It's a whole course. It's a big theory or big course in itself. So it's a big data. It's a huge science, and a lot of people are already working on it, and day by day it is improving. And neural networks particularly work well for a certain class of problems like image recognition and video analytics. Neural network algorithms are very calculation intensive, and it requires very highly efficient computing machines, and large data sets take significant time on any tool, and we need to try different options and packages. Currently there is a lot of research going on around neural network. In fact, a particular applications of neural networks like computer vision, etc. You can pick up any one of them and then try your hand on some of the new developments, that new applications of neural network. After gaining sufficient knowledge on this basic details, you can get into other forms of neural networks, reinforced learning, deep learning, etc. But for all those concepts, neural networks is whatever we have discussed in this session is mandatory.